Welcome to the virtual presentation of the paper entitled The Concept of Academic Freedom in Various Departments. My name is Dr. Mary Lewis. I am an assistant professor of social work in the Department of Sociology and Social Work. My co-authors are Dr. Ibrahim Khatib of the Department of Technology and Dr. Shamir Hamouche from the School of Engineering. We are faculty members at North Carolina A&T State University. Two of us are tenured track assistant professors, and the third is a tenured chair. A recent article from Associated Press entitled "Scientist Alleges Religious Discrimination in Kentucky" highlights the increasing tensions and conversations concerning academic freedom on university and college campuses across the United States. These questions include: what is meant by academic freedom? Who defines it? What is the relationship between academic freedom and responsibility? And what does it look like when applying the concept of academic freedom to real-life situations? Recent articles have broken down these and other questions into an interrelated set of connections that make the answer to any and all of these questions complex and worth much conversation. This paper provides a review of the current literature on this topic, from the foundations of academic freedom to the current controversies that are occurring both from the political right and left, to addressing the possible risks of involvement of the court or legal systems in addressing them. The authors also conducted an attitudinal survey which explored differences in faculty understanding of academic freedom and ethical responsibility, depending on departmental or field of study affiliation and on administrative levels. The survey was voluntary and limited to the faculty of North Carolina A&T State University. Academic freedom is a concept that many people, both within and outside of higher education, assume they understand and take for granted. Often, it is not until a situation occurs that challenges what is assumed to be academic freedom that the conversation uncovers the many differing elements that impact it. According to the John William Pope Center for Higher Education Policy in 2009, quote, "At its core, academic freedom is the freedom of scholars to pursue the truth in a manner consistent with professional standards of inquiry. It applies to institutions as well as scholars, and to students as well as faculty." Unquote. Academic freedom is supported by court cases, and academic tenure helps to protect it. It is often connected with our Constitution's First Amendment right of free speech. Academic freedom carries with it academic responsibilities. The concept of academic freedom has been influenced by different thinking and has developed over time. During the classical age of ancient Greece, Socrates was tried and condemned to death for his refusal to stop teaching his students beliefs which did not support the Athenian gods. Plato, one of Socrates' students, opened an academy that was devoted to training students in inquiry and the development of wisdom. Early schools in America were created to support the training of youth for work in Christian endeavors. The church, rather than local governments, had say on what was taught and who could teach it. As the country grew, educators were influenced by the German university system, which was highly regarded. This system of education placed emphasis on science, research, and discovery. With the growth of land-grant colleges after the Civil War, the new university system incorporated these concepts into their structure. In 1940, after a series of joint meetings begun in 1934, which was based on a 1925 Conference Statement of Academic Freedom and Tenure, the Association of American University Professors created a restatement of principles entitled the 1940 Statement of Principles on Academic Freedom and Tenure. This document has undergone minor changes in 1969, 1989, and in 1990. The purpose of the document is to promote public understanding and support of academic freedom and tenure, and agreement upon procedures to ensure them in colleges and universities. Institutions of higher education are conducted for the common good and not to further the interest of either the individual teacher or the institution as a whole. The common good depends upon the free search for truth and its free and open discussion. According to the AAUP, academic freedom protects 1. The teacher's right to, quote, full freedom in research and in the publication of the results, subject to adequate performance of their other academic duties, unquote, and is based upon an understanding with institutional authorities. 2. Academic freedom protects the teacher's right, quote, to freedom in the classroom when discussing their subject, but they should be careful not to introduce into their teaching controversial matter which has no relation to their subject, end quote. Teachers are also private citizens and as such have the rights of private citizens to speak and write as citizens. The 1940 statement also addresses the role of academic tenure, stating that tenure is a means to certain ends, specifically 1. Freedom of teaching and research and of extramural activities, and 2. A sufficient degree of economic security to make the profession attractive to men and women of ability. Freedom and economic security, hence tenure, are indispensable in the success of an institution in fulfilling its obligations to its students and to society. Interpretive comments and additional restatements have been attached to this original document as a way to provide suggested policies and practices that act to protect academic freedom. These statements and interpretive comments represent the developing and changing best practices of governance and shared responsibilities between the researcher, teacher, student, and institution that provide an environment for the core value of academic freedom to thrive. The core value or goal of academic freedom remains the same, but the external context and the applications need to be altered from time to time in order to accommodate the changing external conditions that are demanded by society and the political environment. Confusion between the core value and the suggested best practices to uphold it can be easily misunderstood. The paper presents numerous challenges to academic freedom from both the right and left, politically, religiously, and by industry who wants to protect their economic investments. Each challenge and counter-challenge is viewed through the lens of those who claim to know the truth. The old adage that one person's truth is another person's fiction, or vice versa, is a good saying to apply to this situation. There is a confusion that academic freedom holds its power due to its connection with the First Amendment right of free speech. As Donald Downs from the Pope Center points out, there is a relationship between academic freedom and the First Amendment right of free speech, but that they are not equivalent to one another. Academic freedom is narrower than the general freedom of speech under the First Amendment, in that it applies only to teaching and specifically to those who teach in public education. Academic freedom in private institutions is supported by contractual agreements between the institution and the teacher. Please look at the paper where you can review some of the current conflicts within the field of academic freedom. The researchers of this paper determined it would be useful to conduct a survey of the faculty at our home institution, North Carolina A&T State University, to determine if our institution would reflect similar findings as those reported by the University of Minnesota's study in 2004. Those results from their survey indicated that, quote, most faculty members have only vague awareness of the tenets and obligations of academic freedom, and few have read the defining documents, unquote. Our working hypothesis yielded 3 assumptions. First, the majority of faculty do not have a clear understanding of the boundaries and purpose of academic freedom. 2, there is a clear difference in how the concept of academic freedom impacts and influences the work of faculty in the STEM area of study and the social science humanities area of study. STEM refers to science, technology, engineering, and math. The third assumption is that there is a difference in how faculty respond based on the length of time that they work within an institution of higher education. It is important to note that the supposition for this last hypothesis was that if someone worked less than 7 years, he or she was not tenured, and if he or she worked more than 7 years, then he or she was tenured. 48 faculty members responded, which was close to 10% of the request to participate emails that were sent out. The findings indicated that there was confusion about the understanding of academic freedom, which confirmed the first hypothesis. There was no significant differences between the responses provided by faculty in the STEM and the social science humanity participants. This disproved the second hypothesis. The third hypothesis was stated that there would be a difference in responses depending on length of time a responder worked in higher education institution was supported. Please see more in the article about both the research methodology as well as a fuller presentation on the findings. The heart of academic freedom is the protection of the right of teachers, students, and researchers to express their ideas with intellectual honesty and without fear of reprisals. This quote came from Downs, who is one of the authors of the Pope Center study on academic freedom. This protection also supports the AAUP statements that, quote, common good depends upon the free search for truth and its free discussion, unquote. The original purpose of tenure was to provide freedom and economic security, which was seen as, quote, indispensable in the success of an institution in fulfilling its obligations to its citizens, to its students, and to society, unquote. To maintain a stable environment for academic freedom to grow and thrive, it must address the freedoms and the responsibilities of the professional researcher and teacher, the rights and responsibilities of the institution, and of the student. These three groups need to be examined within three contexts: teaching, research, and extramural expression. Court cases, internal and external debates, organizational complaints and protests are all ways that the system provides feedback and tries to address the competing demands and conflict of ideology that surrounds us within our society. This process does lead to confusion as the best practices change and expand. It is in this gray area of confusion and ambiguity that difference in interpretation exists. It is also understandable that faculty members who have spent less time within the higher education system may be less clear of the boundaries of academic freedom and may misunderstand the difference between the concept and the current best practices. As the length of time within the educational system increases and with the addition of tenure, both comfort with ambiguity and understanding develop. Tenure had an initial goal to provide a sense of freedom and economic security for researchers and teachers, which would allow them to examine and explore different paths of discovery that may not be popular in society. Today, tenure still provides to some degree this protection when it is mixed with an understanding and practice of educational responsibility. I'd like to refer you back to the paper where you will find implications for future research is noted there. For this slide, there are some last comments that we would like to make on this paper. One researcher of the paper feels strongly that due to the confusion and ambiguity surrounding the concept of academic freedom, that a new definition needs to be written with simple, unconfused wording. A second researcher disagrees due to the belief that the same ambiguity that causes confusion also allows for the consideration and addition of various voices and thought which are needed to influence the best practices which will allow the concept of academic freedom to continue to exist. So even within this research, And this paper, the debate on academic freedom, continues.